So, I was wondering if I can get the Oximus.
I wanna take a bit with Cardi B inside my cardigan.
Welcome back to Pass the Aux. With me is Christian Hill. What's up, man?
What's going on?
How's it going?
Man, life is good. Life is great. I ain't gonna say a lot to you.
That's what I like to hear. So, as always, I'm gonna ask you, what have you been listening to lately?
Oh, man. I know we talked about it a couple weeks back, but I did end up listening to 2 Chainz, Don't Sell Itself.
Okay.
Thought it was really good.
Uh-huh.
Had a few hits on there. Earth Gang dropped Ghetto Gods, which I've been listening to. And because of that, recently I spun back to their old one. I think it was La La Land?
Maryland. Yeah.
Maryland. Spun back to that to give that an old listen. Back for Everything by Kodak Black. Definitely a tough one. Haven't heard anything new on the R&B side, which I'm still kind of waiting on. Still waiting on some of those bigger names to drop.
Yeah, there really hasn't been very big drops lately.
Yeah, so I've been trying to listen back to some older music. So LMA's been on my playlist. Brett Fayez.
LMA actually dropped a song a few weeks ago. I know that.
Yeah, I've listened to her new song, but like still waiting on some type of project, EP.
Yeah, because that song was all right. It wasn't bad. I liked it, but I wasn't like blown away by it.
I think probably somebody that I've definitely been listening to a lot this in this time frame since our last couple episodes that we talked. Big Sean has been heavy in my playlist.
Yeah.
I've been, I'm graduating. I've been really on this kind of chill, like reflective vibe, you feel me?
Yeah.
And so, having him just listening to Detroit 2, especially I decided that's definitely been like the heaviest I've been listening to, just because I think that album encompasses a lot. I know we talked about this as far as the radio station, The Lost Boy as well.
Oh yeah.
I think those have been the 2 heaviest albums I've been listening to, just encompassing my time here at ISU, because it's coming to a close, which is crazy to think, but I think those are my 2 heaviest as far as like going back in music.
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying. Honestly, I've been pretty much listening to the same stuff after we had like a extensive talk about Big Sean last time you were on. It really put me in a Big Sean mood. And so I re-listened to Dark Sky Paradise, which is still my fave album by him because it's so good. I also been listening to Ghetto Gods a lot. Huge Dreamville fan. And, Earth Gang, in my opinion, feels like the new Outcast for our generation. And so I've been listening to that. Conway the Machine dropped an album same day as Earth Gang, and I just got around to listening to it yesterday. God Don't Make Mistakes is what it's called. It's pretty good. Not bad. I'll have to re-listen to it to really get a feel for it. Lil Wayne has a crazy verse on the song Tear Gas. But, it's actually funny that you're talking about like reflective and stuff like that, especially like with Big Sean and whatnot, because like, to me, at least in my life, Big Sean like really defines a lot, because like I feel like as I grew, he was growing as an artist too, and so like I was growing with him.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you.
But it's funny you were talking about Big Sean so much, because that's kind of what today is about. We're not going to be playing like a big game or anything. I think it'd be cool to like just really have an in-depth talk about like specifically in like every genre or just like every feel or like generation. There's always been one artist that really like stands out and sticks with it through the test of time. And so like what makes an artist like that, Like we can break it down into genres, we can break down the styles.
Yeah.
There's stuff outside of music that artists are really defining themselves into. Like, I'm pretty sure that no one will ever be as in-depth into the, like, headphone game as, like, Dr. Dre is.
Yeah.
Because, Beats is, like, synonymous with him now. You see him, you think Beats. You see Beats, you think him.
Yeah.
And so...
Which is crazy to think, because Dre, obviously him being a producer, like, produced NWA... They went off on a solo, I don't want to say discover, but kind of discover Eminem. And it's like, but from our generational standpoint, he's so synonymous with Beats that's like, if it's not the first, it's the second. It's like automatically 1A and 1B.
Exactly.
Thing, where it's like producer, beats or beats producer type of thing.
Yeah. And so stuff like that is, like, to me, one of the craziest parts about music in general, because you think about it so much, there's so much that goes into it, you know? Like, we were talking a little bit about it earlier before we hopped on. Like, Michael Jackson specifically. He, you know, he passed in 2011, right?
I believe so. I'm from Gary. I should know this.
I think it was 2011, but...
I was a kid. They had it was crazy.
Yeah.
People were crying in the streets.
I mean, shoot, that was like that in, like...
No, he passed in
like in
09.
Indy, like where I'm from, that's what, like, I think everyone was just really, like, distraught that day.
He passed in 09.
In 09.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So you were a couple years off.
So, I mean, that's over 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And so that's just crazy to me, because thinking about it, his music specifically is such a huge part of, like, culture. And, like, I feel like you can't go anywhere during, like, the end of September to the end of October without hearing Thriller.
Nah.
Just like you can't really talk about modern pop music without explaining the king of pop,
right,
and his influence on things. And so stuff like that really gets me thinking, like, with today's artists, like, what defines what's going to make a generational artist? Because I'm sure we can agree 20 years from now, we'll still be talking to our kids about Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah.
But, like, why?
So I'll touch on the Michael Jackson portion first and then kind of go into Kendrick. I think with Michael Jackson, we saw his evolution. And
Yeah.
I think that's one of the key factors in having a generational talent is we see the evolution. So we think about his time, Jackson 5, him being, you know, essentially a kid superstar, going to Motown, performing with all the big names at the time, Anita Baker. I can't even know. I don't know why the names are not popping up in my head. But, you know, Anita's the first one to pop in my head. Anita Baker and so forth, as far as Motown is concerned. And then you saw him break off and do his own thing. And, you know, you saw the combination, the moonwalk, Thriller, like you said, the jacket, so iconic. And then you started to see him mold again, you know, obviously with his skin condition and everything like that. And then you saw a new evolution of Michael. So it was moving away from the Billie Jean is Not My Lover into I Changed the World, which was iconic at the time. You know, he was a part of that. Or A Man in the Mirror, or just that his whole transition, you know what I'm saying, from the glove to the stage performances, him traveling the world, him being able to not only influence the music industry, but, like, culture as a whole.
Yeah.
Like, during that time frame, the Michael Jackson Experience, I think about, like, there's a game based around Michael Jackson and all the music he delivered. And so I think the evolution is one part. I think that's one of the big reasons we love Michael Jackson. Obviously, the sound is another thing, the sound and the style, the way he performed and entertained. But then moving on to somebody like Kendrick, with Kendrick, I think there's the message behind it. I think it's listening to how he speaks or listen to the way he produces. And I think that comes from just a long line and a long love of the evolution again, where we saw the evolution from going from disco into hip-hop and jazz and all those influences pulling into what we listen to today. Yeah. And then we see that dialect inside the music industry, that production inside the music industry take different shapes and forms. Like, I'm gonna pull it up because I saw it yesterday, and, you know, it's crazy that we're talking about this. Like, there's a lot of features that came from video games.
Oh yeah.
Like Lil Uzi Vert, You Gotta Move, based off the pinball machine. Drake sampled Donkey Kong. Yeah. And I didn't even, like, I was like, he sampled Donkey Kong? That's crazy.
Video games being sampled is a huge thing in music right now, let alone sample culture in general. Yeah. Because samples have become such an iconic way of, like, really showing respect or, like, paying homage to other genres and just even other songs in general. Like Rico Nasty rapping over Jay-Z's Dirt Off Your Shoulder beat. like, to me, that feels like she's literally just shaking hands with essentially Kanye West, because he's the one who made that beat. Or no, I think Timbaland made it. Still, either way, samples in general are another thing that can really define specifically like our generation of music. I mean, shoot, I remember watching Wild 'N Out in 2008.
Man.
And Kanye West was on it. And they just kept digging on him the whole episode, making fun of his producing skills because he samples. But nowadays, if you don't sample, you're either going to get made fun of for having a trash beat, or you're going to be expected to make something that's worth sampling in 10 years.
Yeah.
And like specifically with Kendrick, I like how you were talking about like the message and his cadence and the way he delivers his stuff. I don't think I've ever heard it put this way before, because it kind of just came to mind. Similarities between like the whole Michael Jackson thing we were talking about is like Kendrick and Michael Jackson both were huge advocates for like anti-discrimination and like specifically not even just discrimination, just like judgment off of just the way one acts or like presents themselves.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like you said, with that skin condition, we had to watch him evolve, because there was people saying that he did it on purpose, and that really brought about like black and white.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that I think Kendrick handles very well too, because he really gives the Compton story differently from how we've heard it before.
Yeah.
Because everyone knows NWA gave us Straight Outta Compton. We knew like that's a tough side of LA. And really like we didn't get the people that weren't in the midst of like gang banging or getting stuck between like a turf war and whatnot until Kendrick Lamar. And to me, that is another thing that really defines a generation, is like people like us. We're, you know, it's not always gang banging, but we're always caught between something with where we're at. Like we're in between the new school of music and the old school. Because I'm sure a lot of people, like specifically you and me, we grew up off of like 90s and late 80s music, but we also really like newer stuff.
Yeah.
Like you were just talking about how you love R&B. Brent Faiyaz feels like he's making music that's very similar to 90s R&B, but then you also have like Rod Wave's type of R&B too.
The Wave, my favorite. Y'all, man, I love Rod.
And
Rodarius, amazing.
And like the difference between the two is so vast, yet so close together. And so I really think that that's a huge part of like our generation. And, you know, it's very similar to how like Eminem had such a tight grip on the 90s and early 2000s, because he was really like the first white rapper that proved like, hey,
I can actually rap with these other guys. I can rap with African Americans who kind of dominated the space.
And we had Beastie Boys and stuff, but they were literally, they are called frat rap. And that's essentially like just dudes partying all the time. Yeah. And so it's
Mac Miller fell into that category.
Exactly. Which that's fine too. Like there's nothing wrong with it. But like I think from like a technical talent standpoint, Eminem really like changed it. And I don't know. I think that's why you see so much diversity in music in general, let alone rap nowadays.
And I think it's a good thing. I mean, you want to see that diversity because it appeases every audience and it opens the door for people to enter a new audience.
Yeah, because like it's not fair to like try to section off something from someone else. Yeah. Let alone a whole group of people trying to get sectioned off from one genre of music. And so that's another thing too with like staying on the Kendrick beat here. His music has never like felt like he was pushing one way or another. He really like he's telling his side of every story, yet he's always maintaining openness for others in his heart. Yeah. And so I feel like that really can define an artist in no matter what genre. Because, I mean, you run into stuff like this all the time. There's always some form of reality that's always thrown into music, whether it's a fake story or not. And that's a beautiful part of music. And so with Kendrick specifically, I think that's one of the main reasons, like 20 years from now, we'll still be talking about him and he'll still maintain relevancy within a culture.
No, I definitely agree with you. And then I think this is kind of the last point I want to hit on because I figure we're gonna move on from Kendrick after this. But and this because it opens up another conversation aside just music and artistry. I'm on my Apple Music. I'm just looking at Kendrick. I'm looking at his album covers.
Yeah.
I think that's another portion of what we see and why it's so evolutionary and why, somebody like Kendrick, somebody like Cole, they're like genre defining generational, and we call it in sports generational talents to our generation of music, the decades, 20 years from now we'll be listening to them. Like I look at Good Kid, Mad City. It's a picture of a minivan.
Yeah.
Like it's so simplistic, but then you go through the album and it's like it's
fits.
so deep. Like it's so deep. Or To Pimp a Butterfly, it's a group of people standing. Is this behind? I believe this is behind a monument.
I think that's the steps to the Lincoln Monument.
Lincoln Monument in Washington.
Yeah,
Fire. Like
I think so.
It looks historical, but also new enough
And
to you know what I'm saying, bridge
it
that
defines
gap.
the album.
And then Untitled Unmastered, it's nothing. It's literally Untitled Unmastered in small print at the top, and then a blank slate. Then you have obviously him with Damn, just him being Kendrick with a white T-shirt on.
Yeah.
But you look at those, and then spin that back to Michael Jackson. You look at Michael Jackson's discography and his album covers, like they're so iconic for the time.
Yeah.
It's like there are certain pieces you want to frame. There are certain pieces that it's a reason like we still have vinyls.
Yeah. And like
these albums.
Off the Wall, like specifically that cover art is so iconic to me because I mean, it's Michael Jackson wearing a tuxedo standing in front of a brick wall. Two things that don't usually correlate together. Mm-hmm. Yet it's just so iconic because when you think Off the Wall, from a music standpoint, obviously, because Vans exists. When you think Off the Wall, you think Michael Jackson. And no, I love how you mentioned cover art because cover art is a huge thing. And I think Kendrick Lamar tackles it perfectly because from just an outside view, the cover art for Kendrick Lamar's discography makes no sense. Like you said, it's just a minivan. But like when you really listen to the music, all of his cover arts really define the albums. Like To Pimp a Butterfly, that album, arguably his best album in most people's opinions. Which,
me, I'm a Good Kid, Mad City guy. Like, that's my favorite.
Well, that's my favorite one too. But like overall, like a majority have said that To Pimp a Butterfly is his best album.
I can see why.
Yeah, and just that cover art alone is iconic. Like I'll be able to pull up that picture one day, and I know someone will just be like, "Oh, Kendrick Lamar."
Yeah,
and that's just amazing to me. And so, when it comes to like Kendrick, you can categorize like J. Cole and like that type of rap in with it.
Yeah.
Because like I feel there probably is like a handful of different reasons, but I think J. Cole will also be one of those artists one day.
He will be. I mean, I think he is. I think he is already. Yeah. I think.
I'm a huge Cole fan, so I already think he is.
Yeah.
But like from a generational standpoint, I think one day it'll just be solidified. Because he gets a lot of hate, and so like most of all, that's from like a message side.
Yeah.
That's a content within the lyrics side, and I think that is one of the main things that can define an artist. I mean, like I said, NWA, they had a message, and it's 2022. It's probably been over 30 years since they even put out a single.
Yeah.
And so that's crazy because we're still talking about them to this day. They had a movie made about them in the 2010s. And so that's just awesome to think about, like, their message has been spread for so long. And so I think Kendrick and J. Cole and artists like that who have their lyrical abilities and the ability to tell a story or express a message, that'll also define them for generations to come.
Yeah.
And so that brings me to think, well, what other characteristics do we have? And so
I think another characteristic is I'll phrase it like this and I'll kind of explain. I think it's homage to respect.
Yeah.
And so we talking about NWA. We think about the rappers that we listen to now, whether we feel like they're generational or not. So like You could we'll throw out Yachty, or just going through the list like Yachty or Tupac or well, I can't think of names. Like I got the names in my head. I just can't. I got the faces in my head. I can't think of the names. Or YG, Chris Brown. Just you think of those names, and then you listen to them when they talk about who are their inspirations, or like DJ Envy, DJ Khaled. You listen to them talk, and they pay a lot of respect to the older generation of rappers and influencers and stuff like that. So those people that get the bigger shine, like they just have that bigger worldly impact. Like you said, NWA. But then I go to somebody like Big Pun. Now Big Pun is huge. If you really listen to music, and you really care about music and stuff like that, Big Pun was huge, right?
Oh yeah, he was a big part of like specifically my childhood, because that's early 2000s,
right? And
so like that was like when rap transitioned from, it doesn't have to always be a huge message. Yeah. There can be a mix of message and fun involved with it. And so, like, you had Big Pun, you had Fat Joe, you had Ludacris. And, like, that's really...
T.I., you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But you listen to how they speak, and they talk about, I remember growing up listening to NWA and Criss Cross or Snoop. Yeah. And, you start to listen to that, and it's like, okay, from a music lover perspective, let me put them on this pedestal of highlights. You highlight them as creators and the artists that they were to shape those genre-defining people now. And so I think that's where we come in with the new generation, our generation, with that generational talent thing, like the homage to respect factor. Yeah. Like, let's be honest. Like, I'm gonna use Kanye.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring him up next.
For sure. So we can definitely dive into this. Kanye West as a producer. In my opinion, Kanye West is probably the greatest producer of all time. He's up, like, from the stuff he's done, from the things he's done, like, he's up there.
He's not my number one, but I know exactly what you mean, though. Like, in regards to his production and the stuff he's made, and there's still songs out there that no one knows Kanye is the one who produced.
Right.
And just from that standpoint, that alone is enough for him to be remembered, at least in the music industry, for years and years and years.
For years and years and years to come, right? But then I think about somebody like Quincy Jones, who had an influence on Kanye. Yeah. Like, Kanye grew up during that time, and, having that ability and listening to somebody like Quincy Jones, who's a major influence and major producer as well. And so... Because I ended up watching this documentary a couple years back when it was on Netflix. I think it's still on Netflix. Quincy, I think it's still on Netflix.
Possibly.
I think so.
I know which one you're talking about, though.
Just looking at that, and you see, like, okay, Kanye West paid all this respect to people like Quincy, or, just the industry-defining DJs and producers at the time. Yeah. Now... we got producers like Metro Boomin and Southside and everything like that. From just speaking from a rap perspective, you feel me? Yeah. Because there's a lot more producers out there that don't get the same accreditation and everything like that. Yeah. But you look at the big names that we have, and they talk about, oh yeah, I grew up listening to Kanye. Like, Kanye was one of the first. And I speak on Kanye because I do love him. Even though he is crazy.
He has his moments.
808s and Heartbreaks. One of the first times somebody put like 808 drums with like sad music from a rap perspective.
Yeah. And like, so that was actually how I was going to flip it, is like, we have the deeper message with Kendrick and them, but then there's artistry. And, Kanye West arguably is one of the greatest artists to have ever lived. Because I'm sure if I had you make a top 10 list of your favorite lyricists, Kanye's not on that list. No. But artist-wise, Kanye has done things that no one has even thought of. And he really has willed every single thought he's had into existence. Yeah. And so, like you said with 808s, he was putting 808s on sad songs. And everyone was like, what? That's for me to drive down the street just bumping.
Exactly.
But no, he said, no, I can use 808s for any type of song I want. And then also... right before that is T-Pain. with I'm Sprung and songs like that, and everyone's like, what is with this auto-tune?
Or Lil Jon even.
Yeah.
Lil Jon, another producer, Pharrell, like, they're genre defining. And I want to get into Pharrell for a minute because I think his goes even outside of music.
Yeah, we can, that's all part of, like, this whole, like, production standpoint.
For sure.
Like, but, like, with 808s, we had T-Pain who was just getting completely clowned for using autotune. And they're like, you can't really sing, which isn't true. T-Pain had to do something different.
Because he was on The Masked Singer going crazy.
In general, like, there's videos of him just doing live versions of his songs without autotune, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
There's this documentary series on Netflix called This Is Pop, and it's, like, mainly pop culture, but also pop music. It's like the very first episode is all about Boyz II Men and how they're regarded as the first ever real boy band and, like, the best boy band of all time and whatnot. But the second episode is all about autotune. And Cher was actually one of the first female artists to ever use autotune with her song, Do You Believe in Love? And song, like, you know, everyone was like,
that's one of her, that's her biggest song.
yeah. And, like, no one, to this day, no one knew that was autotune. But, like, you listen closely, you understand it. But then, like, it goes down this path where it talks about how T-Pain was just, like, completely thrown to the wolves about it, basically. Like, no one gave him a time of day to think about. But then 808s happens. And Kanye West is using 808s on sad songs, auto-tune on literally every song. And it's regarded still, most people say that it's in his top 3 albums of all time. Just because of the impact it's had on the music industry.
It's my favorite, and this is crazy, but it's my favorite because of the time that I was in. Like, 808s Heartbreaks came out, I think, 2008.
Yeah.
I was a kid. I think I went through my first heartbreak during that time.
Yeah.
So, like...
Well, I mean, like, Heartless, it sticks with you.
It just flows with me. Like, it just flows with me.
Yeah. Well, not even the whole album, like, specifically Heartless.
Yeah.
There's not one person out there
That doesn't know that
in
song.
our generation that doesn't know that song. And so...
And if you don't, go listen to it.
Yeah, definitely go check it out. 808s in general is a beautiful album. Like, Love Lockdown is still one of my favorite songs of all time.
Facts.
And, you know, you also got Amazing, which isn't sad, but Amazing has been used for all types of inspirational things. It's been used for boxing movies. A guy danced to it on Dancing with the Stars. He made, like, an interpretive dance for it. That whole album is just genre defining in general.
Yeah.
And so that just shows how production, along with your artistry, can take such a major turn in your career. Because Kanye, you know, you were talking about watching the documentary and stuff. He started producing. And then he was like, hey, I'm going to be a rapper. And no one believed in him.
The 3rd episode came out today. I'm going to watch it. I'm ready to watch it.
But, you know, no one wanted to see... Because this was when it was just wild to even think of a producer that wanted to rap.
Yeah, like...
Because, like, nowadays we're used to it.
Rockefeller had Jay-Z, Dame Dash. Obviously, those are 2 big names. But, you know, they were signing other artists and stuff like that. And it was just like... Because like I said, I was watching the documentary. It was a great documentary. He was playing... what was the song? We All Fall Down. No.
Yeah, All Falls Down.
Yeah, All Falls Down. He was playing that for, you know, everybody in essentially the studio, Rockefeller.
And that's the biggest
like,
song off of College Dropout.
And nobody was vibing to it at all.
Which is crazy because that's literally my second favorite song on College Dropout.
And then he played Through the Wire for Pharrell, and Pharrell was like,
and Pharrell, I saw that. Pharrell literally goes, one of the greatest things about you is you're self-aware. He's like, you know what your talent is.
Yeah.
He goes, the only problem with that is you got to be able to listen to people when you do step too far in your music. Mm-hmm. He's like, because I'm telling you, you're self-aware. You know you're good. So you're instantly going to think everything you make is good. He goes, but you got to be willing to listen to people who are like, that ain't it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you mentioned Pharrell because that really takes into account, at that point, Pharrell was also a mainstay in the music industry. And, I mean, Pharrell has one of the most signature producer tags that's not even an official producer tag. And that's the 3 count right before the song starts.
Yeah.
Drop It Like It's Hot. You know, the doom, da doom, da doom.
Yeah.
Even Hollaback Girl by Gwen Stefani. Starts off with the stomp, 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 stomp. And then it jumps in. Pharrell, like you said, for more than just music, Pharrell has become a cultural icon.
And I think that's another part of making a generational, genre-defining artist or generational, like I said, we call it sports, but like generational talent through the artistry.
Yeah.
His image has become bigger and has become more synonymous with more than just the music.
Yeah, because like nowadays, well, yeah, I wouldn't even say for me, but like most of the time when I'm like Pharrell Williams, some people are like,
Fashion.
you mean that guy that designs clothes?
Exactly.
I'm like, yeah. Or I'll be like, no, I'm talking about the guy who made Nerd. And that's actually one of the coolest things in contrast with Kanye West and Pharrell is like how they built off of each other for so long.
Yeah.
And how Kanye technically is the one who coined the term nerd. Because I forget what he said it started with immediately. It's like nothing ever really ends or something like that. Or
Nothing that really dies.
well, that's what Nerd turned into, like, when they dropped their 2014 album or whatever it was.
Okay.
But when Kanye coined the term, it was like nothing really, or nothing ever really, something like that. I don't know. But it was like talking about how you don't want an album to end. And that's why Pharrell and Kanye had talked about it, and they were like, we don't want to make albums that are albums. We want an experience.
Mm-hmm.
We want something that'll live on even after you're done listening to it. It'll sit with you. And to me, that's another thing that like really sets the two apart from other producers.
Yeah.
You know, like I think Pharrell might be my number one favorite producer of all time.
That's fair. I mean,
yeah.
I wouldn't be upset with that.
Yeah. And so like, you know, Kanye's probably number 3. And that's only because Kanye as an artist has really ventured off of that for me specifically, you know, like, because like I said, he's not the greatest lyricist, but he still does have some of the hardest hitting lines I've ever heard in my life, just like he's had some of the most beautiful experiences with his albums.
Yeah.
Because like I wouldn't even sit here and say that like his albums are going to be my favorite albums forever, but like College Dropout to this day is like stuck with me. Because like the first time I heard 2 words off that album with Mos Def, the production, his delivery, Mos Def literally being one of the hottest rappers at that moment, which is the early 2000s.
Yeah. 2000 to 2000, I'll say 6.
Yeah.
It's probably his peak and prime during that time.
Yeah, and then he started acting. And that's just another thing that artists, you know, you see it all the time. But like with Kanye, his artistry and his vision for things. Like, you know, say what you will about Donda, because, you know, obviously it's not going to be anyone's favorite Kanye album ever. But the experience on getting there is memorable.
Yeah.
With the ups and downs and the coolest parts of it. Like, I remember watching one of the live streams, because he did a deal with Apple.
Yeah.
For one of the live streams.
stream.
I remember watching it, and I heard Jail for the first time. I was like, okay, this is cool. You know, like, what's coming up next? And then you just hear Jay-Z's, and you're like, it's the Return of the Throne. And just that, experiences like that really give him, like, such an artistic advantage against anyone else, is because his vision exceeds the music. And same with Pharrell, like, with fashion. And with just business in general, Kanye and Pharrell, like, really have stood the test of time with it, and probably still will. And so that makes you think, like, so for generation defining artists, we've had message, production, artistry, and
evolution.
And so what happens when you run into someone like Donald Glover? And
I'm glad you got to that, because I put Donald Glover, Childish Gambino, and Tyler the Creator in kind of the same boat. So I started off with Childish Gambino because 2013 when he dropped because of the internet and Yeezus dropped in the same month. And so Kanye had just gotten done with his press tour for Yeezus, and, you know, he was running around saying, I am a god, and all that. And that's when so it was after all that, Gambino drops because of the internet and starts doing a press tour. Yeah.
And then that's when Charlemagne has him on Breakfast Club. And Charlemagne does what Charlemagne does and just digs into him. And the thing that stuck with Donald the most was when Charlamagne goes, "You're a white rapper." And they had this talk. And Donald Glover, Childish Gambino, calls himself the son of Kanye. And a lot of people were like, that's crazy. That doesn't make sense. To this day, do you think Because the Internet is an amazing album?
I do.
Exactly. And so, you know, people...
I think it's his best, barring Awaken My Love. Like,
Yeah.
them two are his top two.
Well, yeah. And so, like, the son of Kanye thing, like, label he gave himself fits so well because he was going on this press tour talking about, like, I'm the greatest artist ever. And at this time, he deemed Kendrick, Schoolboy Q, not J. Cole, a couple other artists. He deemed them top of the game at that moment. Mm-hmm. And he was saying he was better than them. And he goes, and this isn't me trying to start beef. He goes, this is me believing in myself. And so you could put Kanye and Donald side by side, and this is the same rise Kanye had to go, or this is the same type of, I guess, boundaries that Kanye had to push with Yeezus. Mm-hmm. Because he believed in himself and he believed in the evolution of his music. And so Donald Glover takes this whole idea of if you believe in yourself, you can do anything, and flips it on its head.
Yeah.
And he does more than just believing in himself. He starts manifesting out loud. He starts telling people, I'm going to be a household name. You know, I know no one was a huge fan of Camp, my last album, but this album is crazy. Because, like, he had the album, I think it was like 9 music videos that all told the same story. It was like parts of a television series.
Yeah.
And then he also had a digital screenplay that came out with it that you could read, and the songs played as acts in the play. Mm-hmm. And that's unheard of. And so take that, and you're like, wow, this is crazy. And he kind of like dips for 3 years. He's working in television.
Atlanta, one of the greatest shows.
He pitched Atlanta the same year that Because the Internet came out.
One of the greatest shows on FX.
My favorite show of all time.
Of all time? Ooh, that's
wild.
But
my favorite like
fair.
TV drama.
It's fair. But like it's
to be more
amazing.
specific.
It's definitely amazing.
Yeah. And so he has turned the entertainment industry into Donald Glover's playground, essentially.
Yeah.
Because now he can walk into anything and do whatever he wants.
He can jump in and out of genres.
Yeah. He literally...
And not even genres, but like social spaces, media, entertainment spaces.
Yes. He has coined himself as a piece of like moments from our childhood and our adolescence, and then done the same for future generations too. He is Simba now. He played Lando Calrissian in Star Wars.
Yeah.
He has gone everywhere, and yet he's still like the creative mind behind some of the biggest things we see. Atlanta being one of them, which he's won a multitude of awards with. And so that's from just an entertainment standpoint. And so he moves on and makes Awaken My Love, and that's essentially the same like type of evolution you see. Like we were talking about message, artistry, evolution, and production. Mm-hmm. He blends all those together for the whole entertainment industry as a whole, not even just music.
Right.
And then just like you were talking about with production and work outside of music with fashion like Pharrell, we get Tyler, the Creator, who starts off as one of the biggest shock rappers you ever see.
Right.
Because, you know, everyone probably had the same reaction when they first heard Yonkers the first time.
Yeah.
They were like, he said, what about Bruno Mars?
It was the cockroach for me.
Yeah.
It was the cockroach. It was crazy.
And because of Yonkers alone, that sparked so much conversation and controversy in the music industry. Like, he's not as relevant anymore, but like, you know who Hobson is? Mm-hmm. You remember the song Sag My Pants, where he just straight up disses Tyler, the Creator, and makes fun of him for eating the cockroach? Look at Tyler now. And so Tyler takes the Pharrell route, basically. And so, like, whereas Donald Glover calls himself the son of Kanye, Tyler can call himself the son of Pharrell, essentially. Because Tyler has done things for fashion that I never thought I'd see, you know? Mm-hmm. Golf LaFleur is probably the biggest thing that Converse has ever done.
Yeah.
and probably makes Converse the most money short of just selling their black and white shoes. And from the music standpoint alone, too, Tyler, like I said, he was a shock rapper. He was saying some profane and vulgar things that you wouldn't expect to hear on a song of any kind.
Yeah.
And out of nowhere, Flower Boy comes out. And I don't know about you, but I remember the first time I listened to Flower Boy. I went into it fresh off of Cherry Bomb, his last album before it. And I was just like, whoa, what? Because it starts with Forward. And you're just like, what is happening? And that's another example of taking all the things and blending them together for your career. And so just from there, you get like a real feel of how like evolution really takes play into it. Because he's had the production. He's produced his own music forever and only had like minor help in production.
Right.
He's always had his own messages that he sends.
Whether they be shock or not.
Exactly. You know, he's always had like the production, the message, and the artistry down. He knew what he wanted. He wanted to be a rapper who skateboards and also has a good time. Or not a good time, but like can also bring in these different elements. And then out of nowhere he evolves.
Yeah.
And right now he's a household name.
Very much so.
He's literally one of the biggest artists in the world.
Won a Grammy.
Yeah. Won a Grammy, nominated for another Grammy on the next album.
Yeah.
And so Tyler really took everything and just kind of threw it all in, you know? And so I think that mostly sets up all these categories into like what makes an artist generation defining.
And I love the explanation. That's why I just let you go on, because I think to sum up kind of what you said in like just that big bubble, it's the individuality.
Yes. And that's the perfect way to explain it.
The individuality of an artist and the way everything culminates. So you have the artistry, you have the production for some, you have the evolution for others. And it all sums up into their individuality, which makes them that household name, that generational talent, that genre-defining artist.
Exactly.
Right? And then you have those who, you know, try and imitate that. You have those that reach a certain level of success and fame kind of emulating what they've seen.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing, because you can become a generational talent through that as well. But it's that one spark, whether it's through those, you know, the 3 or 4 elements that we named, that one spark plus their individuality makes them that generational talent, like that genre-defining artist. And I think where we find that amazing capability and amazing respectability is in how well they flow into it.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing. You can never. We see a lot of artists that try and force it.
Yeah.
And we see other artists that flow into it, and that's where I think of people like. And I mean, we'll just name them off as we did: Michael Jackson, Kendrick Lamar, Kanye West, Pharrell, Tyler the Creator, Childish Gambino, and you know the many other artists. Those are, we just highlight those.
Yeah.
Like there are many
I was
other
saying, those are just like your main standouts, and
that we talked about today.
Yeah,
But
I
like,
want to
there are
include
other
Drake in that.
Oh.
It's just more so like Drake. It's like
I think Drake
it's
is
almost
a little
obvious,
different.
you know.
I think Drake is a little different.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. It's like with Drake, it's almost obvious why he's generational.
Yeah,
It's almost like right in your face. There's no reason to really deep dive it, because
I don't know. I think because there's debates about Drake. I think one of the reasons why he is generational, and this is a little different from all the other ones. Not to say that they don't do this, but Drake does something with smaller artists that I have not really seen as prominently before. Like, we all know Drake is at the top of the game, whether it be, whatever Drake put out, more times than not is going number one.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Barring, like, when Donda and Certified Lover Boy dropped on the same day, like, and Kanye and Drake were battling out for the 1 and 2 spot. But when Drake put out a song, like, put out the song with Dirk. What's the song with Dirk? I can't even think of it.
Laugh Now, Cry Later.
Laugh Now, Cry Later goes number 1. Or hops on Smiley song, Over the Top.
Yeah, who the hell is Smiley?
Don't even know.
Exactly.
Don't even know.
He put out an album not long after. Flopped.
Flop. But that
He had
one
a song with Drake.
That one song with Drake.
He's an
blew
OVO.
up.
So he's an OVO artist, which, you know, cool. Whatever.
I'm not surprised.
Congrats.
Because I was listening to some Drake the other day, and it was like he shouted him out in a song like way before he actually came out with his own music.
Yeah.
Who else? Block Boy JB, Young Blue, like.
Yeah, like in general, like I know what you're saying. Like Drake shows more love for your smaller artists than anyone.
And
Brent Faiyaz, and Brent Faiyaz isn't even like small,
that's what
but
I'm saying.
Brent Faiyaz is like so. Drake, like same explanation I always give with Kanye is Drake is an artist. While it's primarily hip hop, he's still an artist, which means he flips it all around a lot. And so Drake is not only an artist, but he makes R&B music too. But
It's on
it's
Summer Walker's album.
exactly, and it's just such a like I was talking about earlier with the difference between Rod Wave and Brent Faiyaz being in the same genre yet so vastly different.
I need Drake Top on a Rod Wave song. I mean.
Oh, that's bound to happen.
I don't think Rod needed it, but I would love to see it.
I think it would just sound cool because if you think about it, though, ignoring Smiley, all these artists he's worked with didn't really need the feature. It was just fun.
Yeah.
Like, I had listened to Young Blue before, and I was like, this guy's good. He's going to make it one day. And same with, like, Dirk, which everyone had known Dirk.
Yeah, everybody knew
Everyone
Dirk.
knew Dirk, but, like, when Dirk worked with Drake, everyone was like, yo, what?
It took him to another level.
Exactly.
Or Baby, like,
Yeah.
everybody knew who Lil Baby was, but, like,
Oh,
when he
yeah.
hopped on Yes Indeed with Drake, like, it took
Yeah.
him to that next level. Same thing with Gunna, same thing, And I think Drake, he's a genre-defining talent, but I think it's a little bit different with him because his evolution and then his artistry and everything like that, it captured I want to say it captured the mainstream in a way that was very different.
Yeah. Well, my thing is, like, the best explanation for Drake, and I mean this in, like, no disrespectful way, he almost had a de-evolution, if that makes sense, but not in a bad way. See, now most artists, they evolve and go bigger with their features and their projects and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, when it comes to his features and people he works with, Drake de-evolved by stepping down. Like, he knows he's up here.
Yeah.
Yet he still steps down constantly to work with artists. He loves Tyler the Creator. Him and Drake are close now, even after all the Camp Flog Gnaw stuff.
Yeah.
And the Camp Flog Gnaw stuff was just barely after Igor had hit.
Yeah.
Meaning Tyler wasn't huge yet, but he was known. I like how you brought that up because with Drake, like I said, it's blatant why he's number one. It's blatant why he'll be known for years and years and years because Drake now is what Eminem used to be. Well, by like sales wise.
Okay.
Not like necessarily content, but like after the Marshall Mathers LP, every single drop, Eminem went number one. He won 2 Grammys back to back for 2 different albums. And nowadays, Drake, you already know if he drops, he's going number one, whether he's Grammy nominated or not.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think that's amazing. And, people have their different opinions on Drake. And even though I may not be a huge fan of the stuff he's making now, he'll forever be talked about. And I will always use him as a reference for just exactly that, what we talked about. Because the dude is a musician's musician. He has he really never has had that much drama tagged to his name.
Besides Pusha T.
Well, until that.
Yeah.
And that was what, 2018?
2016, I want to say.
It was the same. It was the same year. James.
Summer 16. He dropped the summer because
I thought that was Meek Mill.
That was Meek. Was it? Yeah, it was Meek.
Yeah.
2016.
Because that was when Daytona, Ye, and
Charged
Scorpion
Up.
all dropped. Yeah, that was 2018. Because Charged Up, Summer 16, and Back to Back was the Meek Mill disses.
The Meek Mill stuff, yeah.
And so with Push, that was 2018 because that's when Daytona, Scorpion, and Ye had all came out in one year. And
yeah, it was. You're right.
But just overall though, like that's why it's so blatant that if you ignore like all the Pusha T stuff and the Adonis stuff, there really has never been that much drama or like negative headlines at Drake ever.
Yeah.
And, you know, like even now with like the Kanye stuff, neither of them were in the right, neither of them were in the wrong. It was honestly kind of a stupid feud. Even then, Drake is still Drake. And so, given all the stuff that we had mentioned, so, Christian, would you explain, like, would you describe yourself as like a creative of sorts? Like, you know, you may not,
Yes,
may
I
not,
would. I would.
Yeah.
I think my creativity comes in the visionary approach. I think I'm very much somebody who's a visionary.
You plan it out and you make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Like I see, for myself, just to give a quick spiel or whatever, I think I see myself as somebody who like you said, plan it out, sees it. Like I see it, like I know how I want it to come out. I know how I want to see it, and then I work towards achieving that goal or achieving that outcome. You feel me? I don't have the most. I can't draw. I ain't gonna say a lot to you. I can't draw. Like I don't make beats no more. I used to. I wasn't that good at it. I was okay.
Yeah.
I'm not a singer. I'm not like painter wise. Like, do I love the creative arts? Of course. Like, I loved Keith Harington.
yeah.
Futuramism. Virgil Abloh is one of my favorite designers. You know, I love the arts. You feel me? But I don't think artistry, as in like drawing or anything like that, is for me. I'm more of a visionary. So like,
you could still be a creative. Like
you know what I'm
that.
saying? If I can see it and I have the ability to make it happen, I'm gonna try and make it happen.
Yeah, and if your vision has to include someone else, there's nothing wrong with that too. I mean, because Virgil. That's a lot of what he did too, because I think Virgil was a visionary. And I think he really looked at, like, specifically all the Off-White stuff he did with Nike. Mm-hmm. He literally would look at a shoe, and that's where his inspo would come from. So, like, you don't have to necessarily be an artist of any kind to be a creative, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And so I think you'll appreciate, like, where I want to jump into next with topics and whatnot. So, you know, I'm a creative. I make my own music. You know, I get ideas and all that. And so having conversations like this and like what makes generation defining artist or even just a generation defining person of all time, it just, you know, it like makes me think like, what can I do? And stuff like that. And so like we have our topics, we have stuff like that. We didn't really discuss it much, which not much of a need to, but like we see how trends fall off and how certain things die out. So being creatives, trying to think of how to word this. So like say for whatever reason, we were trying to talk to the next generation. Mm-hmm. How do we explain it to them to at least maintain basically the blueprint that we just laid out of being generation defining?
I think it starts with them finding the niche of passion.
Yeah. You really got to find yourself.
You got to find, like, you have to find what your generation wants to be defined as. Mm-hmm. And obviously that's a difficult thing to do. That comes with time. But going through those fads, going through those trends, finding what sticks, finding what doesn't stick. Like, what do you love? What do you miss? Like,
yeah.
My parents, you know, they liked Aretha Franklin.
Yeah.
I'm glad I got another name than Anita Baker.
Yeah.
Aretha Franklin, or you know, my dad loved Tupac and Biggie and Snoop Dogg and KRS-One and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so like those are genre defining imprints on his life. Prince, for example, is another one.
Yeah.
With us, we've came into a melting pot. Like our generation has come into a melting pot.
Yeah.
Of partially end of 90s.
I really like the way you worded that. Sorry to interrupt, but I really like the way you worded that melting pot. Yeah. Like I keep saying like this in between thing, but it's not even in between because that implies that we have this like single one moment that's different than the two, but really it is just a melting pot.
It's a melting pot because it's like it's so many transitions. So like we come from like that indie, like I say 98, 98, 90s music, early 2000s, crunk, dance music. So like the Cat Daddy and stuff like that. Then we go into 2000s with the more playful but serious rap. So you got like you said, Dark Sky Paradise or Take Care. You and then you kind of coming into this new era of like we have this mix of like old generation rappers like Nas dropped The King's Disease 1 and 2 during the late 2010s, early going into 2020s.
And who would have thought?
Right, and then you have people like Rod Wave coming out who's making this R&B, the sad, but it's also fire. Or you got Lil Baby who's...
Rod Wave specifically is like taking what people would have defined as emo rap 5 years ago, and he's making it to where like he's basically making his own version of It's Okay to Cry.
Yeah, for sure.
And like that's the best way to describe
Juice
it.
WRLD kind of in the same token, you know, and like in the rap, like rap was conscious. I mean, and during times it was still conscious, but like now, like the consciousness is shifted. Yeah. And so I would tell the next generation, if I was talking to the next generation, which I am, because you were part of that, because I'm an old head, but talking to the next generation, I would tell them, find your niche of passion. Like find what you love and take it and expand it. Yeah. In whatever facet, whether that be in the artistry of music and production, whether that be in the artistry of fashion, whether it be the artistry of design. Find that niche and that passion, take it and make it your own, give it your own individuality, and then it's going to carry because it's going to transition. I would also tell them to never be afraid to try and fail. Yeah.
That's the same thing I would do. So, like, I've been doing this since I was in the 8th grade. Like, you know, I've always been inspired. And my only thing is, like, never be afraid to try something new. Don't sell yourself short. Because, like I said, I've been doing it for this long, and it took me until my freshman year of college to really get confidence and, like, admit to people, like, hey, I make music. You should check it out. And so, kind of like you were saying, like, you really have to find yourself. Like, whether you're a creative of any sort, like, whether you're a visionary or you're an actual, like, artist with, like, painting and drawing, you have to find yourself and you have to find what drives you. So, like, for me, it's always just been a love for music. You know, like, if I don't become famous, that's cool. At least I got my own therapist, my own personal way to vent, my own personal way to really show my love for music. You know, drawing inspiration from everywhere I can and stuff like this. And so another, like, piece of advice you could always give anyone, no matter what walk of life they're taking, is never sell yourself short. And just like you were saying, like, you gotta completely abandon the fear of losing or failing and keep pushing no matter what.
Because failure, like, I won't, like, I'm gonna use this one day, but I think to understand, like, I hate when people say I take failure out of my vocabulary. Like, no, like, failure is okay, because if you don't fail, you're never gonna know what you did wrong, and you're never gonna know what you need to fix. Yeah. I think when you learn that failure is okay, that it's a part of your evolution. Like, everything you're gonna put out is not gonna be 110% quality. Yeah. And
that's why there's evolution.
And then the second part to that is understanding that never, like, I love that you said never selling yourself short, because it speaks to something that, you know, it took me 4 years to learn that, like, yes, you want to give your all to everything, but don't burn yourself out in the midst of giving yourself to everything. Yeah. Like, take the measured risk and make sure it's what you love. Like, if you give 100% to everything, you're not gonna be really giving 100% to anything. And that's, like, the God honest truth, you know? Yeah. So what I would tell the next generation, and kind of like sum everything up, is find your niche, find your passion. Whether it takes you 1 year, whether it takes you 1,000 years. Find that love, find that niche, find that passion. Take it, grow it, expand it, and then continue to fail and fail and fail, because once you fail, you'll succeed. Mm-hmm. And once you fail again, you'll succeed again. And it's like your successes will always outweigh your failures for you.
Yeah. And, you know, even with his crazy rants, there's always inspiration to be taken from Kanye. Because even with the fact that he's crazy right now, he always believed in himself. You know, even when he was at the bottom of the totem pole, he called himself the greatest. You know, and I feel like, just like I said, don't sell yourself short. You gotta really have all of literally everything that you said, blend it with confidence, and you can do anything. Because, like, like I said, one of my biggest regrets is never really just biting the bullet and just putting myself out there and like really promoting myself. Because like in high school, I was just known as that one nerdy kid that made music. But like my freshman year at college is when I was like, you know what, clean slate, I can do this. And now I have confidence to do what I do and like promote myself and like show it off any chance I can get. And so a lot of where like my like tips or like advice I could give is always just like, there's always gonna, it's just like doing sports, you know, there's always someone better. Like when you're a championship basketball team, you got to think about it. You got to think about, specifically with creatives, whether a project of any sort, like you being a visionary, you get an idea for this huge thing. You start working on it. You turn it into a project of some sort. You got to treat it like a season of a sport.
Yeah.
Because there's next season and there's always going to be someone out there hungry. There's always someone better. But all you have to do is maintain your confidence and your drive, essentially. Because, like, and I can't even coin that as my own. That's something my dad used to tell me when I was in wrestling, is I got on such a high horse after I won conference and all this. And he was like, you got to calm down. And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, I'm literally the conference champion. That means no one in the conference can beat me. And he was like, you just wait till sectionals come around. I got 5th in sectionals because I walked into it with my head way too high.
4 people outworked you.
Exactly. My high was, my head was in the sky, my feet came off the ground. You got to maintain keeping your head high, but also, you know, staying 10 toes down. You got to stay committed to it. And I feel like that works in any sense of anything you do in life.
It works in all parts of life. I think, you know, and like this is my last part on it. I think every athlete or every, you know, inspirational person that you hear says this, but you have to fall in love with the journey.
Yeah.
And you have to fall in love with the journey, be dedicated to the grind, and know that the outcome is what you put into it.
Yeah. You can't be mad at the hard stuff that comes with it. You have to love the hard work.
Yeah.
You have to love the sleepless nights. You have to love the tired mornings. You have to love every aspect of it.
And it's hard to do, but you got to do it.
Exactly. It's just like looking at, you just got to make it a responsibility. Because responsibility is literally getting stuff done so you can do the stuff you want to do. And that's all it is, really. But, no, I think we pretty much covered it.
Man, we covered a lot. I feel like it's just...
This is an awesome episode.
This was one of the best ones, man, honestly.
I really enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thank you again for jumping on.
Dude, thank you for having me on, bro. Like,
yeah.
as this college career is coming to an end, bro, like, all these opportunities to just, you know, chop it up with y'all a couple more times before I get out of here. It means the world, bro. Like, y'all don't know.
Yeah.
Like, you won't know until you get there, but, like, it does mean the world.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love having you on. You're awesome. And I feel like we have, like, just enough in common with, like, our interests, but also just enough that differentiates so that we can have good conversation. Because, you know, we're not, like, the same person mentally, but we're similar enough to where we can keep a good conversation going and, like, share our views on certain things.
Yeah, and it flows.
Yeah, and so I think that, to like, specifically today's episode, like, today was a good episode and a great episode to have you on specifically because, I mean, these are things I think about all the time. Mm-hmm. You know, like I said, as a creative, you have to think of these things. Like, I know you're a business major, right? Mm-hmm. I know that, like, no matter what you do in your field, being a visionary,
it's an important piece. Like, it's a must.
Exactly.
If you want to climb to the heights of the elites, you got to have a vision.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to have a plan.
Just like in music or entertainment or sports, there's like you said, generation defining talent. And I think that works across the board because no matter what industry you go in, I think this is a great conversation that we had because I feel like we both opened each other's eyes on things and, like, I don't know, like, really got down to it.
Nah, I'm definitely gonna have to look into the Pharrell as the son. I mean, as Tyler created the son of Pharrell. Like, I was like, that's wild.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking about it. I'm like, pretty much right. Like,
yeah.
I gotta look into it though.
You know, Childish Gambino gave himself the title son of Kanye, And that just makes you think about like all these different things and these aspects. And like there's YouTube videos on it where dudes do an even deeper dive than we did. But no, today was a great episode. Thank you so much for being on again. Thank you to everyone who watched and will be watching later on YouTube. I've been Gavin the Chef Cook, and with me today was Christian Hill. Thank you again for being on. We will be back not next week, but the week after. And I hope everyone has a great spring break. And thank you so, so much.
So